Welcome back, astronauts, to the Gremlin's Paradise. My name is Gizmo, and in these series, we're going to discuss some mods. I am going to review mods and let you guys know what the upside is and the downside of mods. I also will explain if it is usable in a 64-bit version, if it is an official or just a fooled 64-bit version. Some mods will or will not work. In this episode, we are going to talk about the Kerbal construction time. Kerbal construction time is indeed working on a 64-bit version, if it is an official one or the 1.0.4 fooled 64-bit version, it will work. I just started a career, and as you can see, I get this little window. You can choose a preset, and on every preset we have a different kind of thing what it does. So if we going to the 7 days, the description of the 7 days, a strict 7-day Kerbal limit between launches, change the overhaul multiplier to set the number of days. No other time restrictions are used for upgrades. This will only affect the launch time between the launches you make, so you have always to wait 7 days. The default. In default, everything is enabled, so it doesn't matter what you do, if it is researching a mod, if it is building a craft, if it's reconditioning the launch pad. Everything takes time. The R low tech, faster low tech career value. Also in this one, everything is enabled, so everything what you do takes time, only it takes some less time. This sim only, disable all build times and just enable simulations. Doesn't require you visit the planet first, but does require funds by default. As you can see, the mod is enabled, allow simulations enabled, simulation cost is enabled. The rest of these are disabled. Up free. Release entirely on the stock building upgrades rather than the KCT upgrade system. So this goes back to its original state of KSP itself. You can see that all of these are enabled. So almost what you do, everything will work, but this time it's entirely up to the stock itself. The upgrades from the tech tree is by this disabled. And of course you can make it custom. You can give it a multiplier, the time multiplier, the build effect, the inventory effect. You can all change this. You can also change how fast it needs to warp. So as soon as you build a ship and you want it to warp to the time that it is created and it's finished, you can actually change how fast that needs to go. I leave it most of the time just on default because everything enabled is giving me the feeling that I'm really playing in career mode. So when you first start, you get to spend upgrades. You can spend upgrades on your vehicle assembly, building on your space plane hangar, and your research. If you research these, then it will increase the building time. So the more BP second I have, the quicker I can build my aircraft. Kerbal Construction Time is a plugin which is at core is designed to make vessel take time to build rather than being able to constantly launch new vessels one after another. This core feature is expanded upon to create a larger system for managing your space center. Build your vessel, upgrade your facilities, research new technologies, test your vessel in simulations, and make decisions where you never had to do before. Features of this mod, vessels will indeed take time to build, and after every launch, your launch pad needs to be recreated. What the upside to this mod is, as I said before, it takes time. So, if you launch a vessel into space and something goes wrong, let's say that Jebediah is now in space, floating around, and he has no fuel to make its return, then you have to build a new rocket to save his ass. But that building that new rocket takes time, and if you, for example, use real overhaul, that gives it a waste and oxygen and things like that, things that actually can run out, you can actually stumble upon the fact that before you even can launch the rocket, your Kerbal died. So this can give it some extra difficulty in the game if you think the game is already too easy. Downside to this mod: if you have this mod installed with just one or two mods, then this is a very nice mod to have indeed. The only downside to it is as soon as you go into the hangar, so I'll just give it here some upgrades. I'll just do only this for a moment. Close it, and then you can see here my vehicle assembly building, my space plane hangar storage, my tech tree, and of course the upgrades where I was just a moment ago, and the settings. Now let's go into my hangar and quickly build an spacecraft. Now we gonna need a module. Let's just put something below that and put some wings in there like that. Now if we hit the launch button, you can simulate it. If we simulate it, we get this window right here, so you can give it time. The more time you give it, the more it will cost. But fairly enough, the cost for simulating this one will be just 100, in spite of the fact that if you actually build it, it would cost you 875. So now you can actually test the vehicle without paying that much. So not simulating it for a moment, and we just hit build. You can see it's now added to the vehicle assembly building list. So what we need to do now, and this is what I think is a downside to the mod, we have to go outside the hangar again, save and continue, go back to the space center, and this is where it becomes annoying if you have a lot of mods installed. Like me, I have on my normal game, this is just my test version to review the mods, but on my normal game I have in this right moment 61 mods running and currently counting and more. If I have to jump from building to building to building to building every time because of the Kerbal construction time, then it becomes very annoying. It takes time to load, and not just that, if you jump from building to building too quickly, too fast, then your game starts crashing. What of course in Kerbal Space Program is something that happens a lot. So now you can see I have this untitled spacecraft. Its progression is now 0.08%. It takes me 3 days, 1 hour, 21 minutes and 55 seconds to complete. So what I can do is I can here have a lot of options. Of course you can select the launch site, what is a nice feature. If you have the real solar system and you have multiple launch sites, you can actually select a launch site. If you have, for example, a launch site on the moon, well, you guessed it, you can launch from the moon. You can scrap it. If I hit this, the spacecraft will be scrapped from the list and not being built. If I made a mistake on the aircraft, on the spacecraft, and I have to edit it, I just hit edit. As soon as I hit edit, I go into the vehicle assembly building, and so I don't have to click it myself. What is a a nice feature. I can rename the vessel from here, so what is nice too, I can duplicate it if I want to do a certain mission twice, or I'm just doing in the beginning of the game some science and I can actually use this spacecraft twice to do what I need to do. I can hit duplicate and have it built at the same time. I can warp too. It's the same thing if I would here hit on warp to completion. If I hit on warp to completion, as I let you see, it will go with a 10,000 times the amount of speed to get to completion. So it goes fairly quickly, but it doesn't really look that realistic. I can move it to the top. So if I have more planes, space planes in the list, I can actually move it to the top. Later on in the game, when you're researching and building space planes and aircraft all at the same time, what is the best to do if you want to have everything done at the same time? Pick the one with the longest time, move it to the top, then warp to completion, and as soon as it completed, everything is completed. I can rush build it 10% faster than it normally should, but this comes at a cost. And of course I can close this. So now to let you see what happens as soon as I warp this to completion. As you can see, it goes fairly quick. And now it is completed, but it is still in my storage building and it has to still travel all this way to the launch pad. So if I would say roll out, then I can see now it takes me 17 minutes to get the spacecraft to the launch pad, and this is because the craft is not that big. So if I would warp that too quickly, it would be done right now, and I have the option to launch it. As soon as I click launch it, a new window pops up. It gives me the opportunity to random fill it, hire out the auto hire applicants if you run out of Kerbals. So if you're really bad at this game and you're screwing it up every time and you're like now in career mode and have no way whatsoever to revert, then you can actually auto hire new applicants. You can fill the spacecraft, you can clear it, you can add one of your crew members. And of course, as soon as you fill it, you can launch it. Now, this is, as soon as I click on this, you will go to the launch pad and launch it as normally, and construction time you leave behind. So I'm not gonna do that right now. But what I do, I'm gonna show you, and this is a downside to it, especially in the beginning of the game. If I would just take one, oh, I don't have any. If I would build a spacecraft that is way bigger than what I just had, so I just built something completely out of the ordinary for a moment. And then I'm gonna build it. Edit. Fail check. Warning, this vessel did not pass the editor checks. It will still be built, but you will not be able to launch it. This is because, this is because I am career mode and I have too many parts right now. But other than that, as it said, it will still be created. But right now, the construction time is way longer. If I would go look at it on this right moment, it would take me 5 days to completion. If you build a huge spacecraft and you did not spend your upgrades, and now in this right moment I spent my upgrades, so I can have two in this right moment, 2 or 3 crafts building at the same time, but they don't build at the same rate. As you can see here, that the first one at the top will go at 0.8 build points per second, and the second craft will go at 0.2 build points a second. I can go to also to the research tab. If I did not spend any points, so let's buy some points. I buy some points. I have no funds, nothing to actually do that, so I cannot let you see this. But what happens is if I um, upgrade this, then the science each day that I get over building the spacecraft, it will generate some extra science. And this is the research. So as soon if we go to the tech tree, and let's say we research something what I cannot do right now, but I can still explain it. If I would research, for example, this, you would click on research, but if you go to your vehicle assembly building, you come to the conclusion you do not have the stuff right then. You go actually to the tech tree, and then just like the vehicle assembly building, you will have a timer running down. Also, this you can do warp to completion. What I think is a big, huge downside to it is everything you need to do, every step you take along the way takes time, and every time you have to warp it. This gives me a feeling that is unrealistic. Indeed, the days and the years and things like that becomes more realistic because I cannot have research the text and go to the moon and build a base up there in just one day. That normally is possible in default Kerbal. It will take me some days to research, and it will take me some days or years to actually get to the moon. And all that time you have to, just like this, you have to do just like this. And I really think this is annoying. A downside to it is, and I really, really want to say that, is if you have a condition called epilepsy, I really do not recommend using this mod, as this can trigger a seizure. If we go back into our vehicle assembly building, I'm going to let you guys see what the simulation actually does. So taking this everything away, and now we're going to simulate it. We're gonna give it 15 minutes, so it only cost me 100. If I gonna hit simulate, nothing more comes to it, then it just jumps to the simulation. Depending on what you choose, your capsule can be or cannot be having a Kerbal in it. In this right moment, I have a Kerbal in it. You get this pop-up window. What I do think is pretty annoying, but you have luckily the option to say do not show at start. If you close it, you can always open it again by hitting this icon. You can immediately build it, restart the simulation, and revert to the editor. Now if we launch it, you just normally launch it, and yeah, and as normal if you would fly, this is actually completely the same as in the game if you actually would build it and then launch it. But if you would do any research, you will notice when you get back you did not get any science points for it. So everything you do in simulation is just to check out if there is nothing wrong build it with your spacecraft. This is a nice feature, because if you build it something wrong with at your spacecraft and you build it and you spend it a lot of money in career mode to build it, and then when you launch it you come to a conclusion that something went wrong, you just lost a lot of funds. Maybe so many funds that you go bankrupt and your game is game over. In this right moment I did not have any parachute installed, so we are just gonna watch Jebediah Kerbin fall back to death when he's gonna smash into the ground. But luckily for him, This is just a simulation. So we just gonna wait a few seconds. Sorry, Jebediah. The feeling is real, but you're not gonna die. As I said, you're not gonna die. Going back to the Space Center. So this cost me 100 fundings than the actual 845 funding it would cost me normally. So this is an upside that I would say definitely is a nice feature. If I come to a conclusion, I would say I like Kerbal construction time, but at the other hand, I do not like it. I do not like the fact that I have to go inside every building, inside the vehicle building, build it, then put it on the list, and then have to go back to the Space Center view to actually get this menu. That is something I do not like. As I said in the beginning of the video, if you have more mods than just one installed, then you run into problems. If you have it on a 32-bit version installed with multiple mods, you will crash eventually because the rendering of your video processor will become too much at some point. 32-bit versions of the game will always crash if you're coming close to 3 gigs of RAM. The game already has an intention to crash at 2800 megabytes. As soon as you go to 3000 megabytes, you're really stretching it, and at 3000 megabytes I can guarantee you crash. So going into and out of buildings a lot will make your game crash easier and quicker. So if you would say that you would play on a 32-bit version and you really have a lot of mods, then I would not suggest to use the Kerbal construction time mod, because this will force you to jump in and out of buildings, and this will eventually be a contribute to crashing your game. Other than that, if you're using a 64-bit version, what is entirely possible, I have even tested it on a 64-bit full version. I tested it on 1.0.4, and it is not an official 64-bit, but it's a 64-bit full version, still a 32-bit game, but I fooled it to be a 64-bit so I can use all of my RAM capacity, and then I do not crash. So if you have a 64-bit version, you will not crash using this mod, and in a 32-bit version it is entirely possible for you to crash. So now the installation. I always recommend to use CCAN because CCAN can figure out if a mod is compatible with another mod, and if it's not, you will not be able to apply the changes. The only thing you have to do is search on construction, and you see the Kerbal construction time, highlight it, apply the changes. This is everything it needs to install to have Kerbal construction time running. For this, it only needs the Kerbal construction time. Some mods need more mods at the same time to have it running, and you cannot change that. We hit apply. I recommend to deselect everything you find up in the next windows, because you do not want to install too many mods at the same time. As I explained in one of my other videos, it's better to just install mod by mod, testing it, and then go to the next mod. We say continue, it quickly got installed, and that is how you install it. For every mod, you can highlight it and then see the homepage and the GitHub website. If you click on it, of course, you go to the website. On the website, you can find more detailed information about the mod and its features. Also, you find some videos about how it works and other tutorials people made. Also, you will find people that are very pleased about the mod and some people that are less pleased about the mod. I would definitely recommend checking it out before using it. I hope this information helped you a lot, and I will see you to my next video, to my next mod review. And as always, fly safe.